We do need to move on to this other issue that I think is so important, not just for our country and for China, but for the world. And that's those protests that we've seen erupting right across China as people try to reclaim their freedom from brutal lockdowns, curfews and other measures in China. I just want to show you, look, I think we've got time to show you this package from the UK. We'll go straight instead to my guest, who's Michael Shoebridge, Strategic Analysis Australia, joining me from Canberra. We'll show some pictures of these protests as we speak, Michael, because we're running tight on time. But tell us about how many protests are unfolding in China. We saw some very violent ones last week, but people taking to the streets, even in the major cities like Shanghai now, being confronted by police. This is an act of defiance against Xi Jinping's regime.
Well, exactly, Chris. It's happened in over 30 cities across China: Shanghai, Beijing, Nanjing, Urumqi in Xinjiang. Started with solidarity over people killed in a fire in Xinjiang because of the lockdown controls. And it's looking more and more like the people are so anti the government because they're watching mask-free people watching the World Cup in Qatar while the Chinese government's building large new COVID detention centres, and they've had enough.
Yeah, well, there's so many aspects to this, but let's start with this premise of the Chinese regime. They're still chasing COVID zero. They still seem to think that is plausible. We know from experience around the world that that's impossible. Why are they pushing so hard for that approach?
Well, Xi made this a central part of his claim for his 5-year term that he just got just a month ago. He told his people he was fighting a people's war against COVID, and he was telling them he was winning that war. But when they see these crowds watching the World Cup, they know China's not winning the war against COVID, it's losing it. And until he embraces Western vaccines, which he can't do, he'll keep losing it.
Now, he obviously calculates at this time that the civil unrest he's seeing now, which is quite historic in the scale, would be worse if COVID was hospitalising a lot of people and killing a lot of elderly people in China. Presumably that's the calculation he's making. Do we expect, while this is sort of heartening to see people protesting in China for freedom, is the real worry here we're going to see an even more brutal crackdown?
I think we will, but he's going to go for hoping that they will fizzle out after the people have vented a bit of their anger. He'll try and arrest anyone that looks like a leader, and he'll use censorship to stop people seeing it as a nationwide protest movement. That'll be game plan A, and it'll get more violent if that fails.
Yeah, extraordinary to see. We'll keep an eye on it. Thanks for joining us, Michael. I appreciate it.